my name is Yi-Mei, and I'm reading to you from Kingston, Ontario. I'm going to be reading to you from my book, Sweet Devilry, and I'll read to you a little bit from my new manuscript as well. The next poem that I'll read to you is called Hansel and Gretel, and it's based on a fairy tale that you probably know. Hansel and Gretel. There was a reason she sent those children to me. Their father, a woodcutter, who would creep into their bedroom at night, eyes glinting like an axe, looking at all he could cut through. She walked on that sharpened blade, served milk thinned with water, saw how he trembled as their throats moved, his hand blistering as he stroked the scrubbed pine table. The children came to me, their hands like sparrows. They picked shingles and chewed the tar like licorice, opened their black mouths to show me its sweetness. I pitied them, swept the small breadcrumbs from their pockets, poured meat into their quavering throats. But still their fingers felt like hollow bones, light and brittle, chalk about to crumble. I turned to fire the oven for bread, and they were gone into the woods, called by the sound of their father felling trees. And the last one that I will read to you from this book is called Rivers of Blood, and this one is a prose poem, so it kind of looks like that on the page. Rivers of Blood. It floods our city. It's coming through the taps, a stutter of rusty water, and then the thick mass of blood rushing through the faucet like a cut artery. No one knows what to do. People don't want to get their shoes wet. We have placed towels against the sweep of the door. Each towel blooms red, fibers plumping with life. My daughter throws a box of Band-Aids out the window. We watch them float on the current like matchsticks. We sit on our roofs, waiting for FEMA, ears tuned to the thrum of helicopters. But no one comes. The sun stings our skin, dries us like scabs. The church blames the gays. People are starting to point fingers to ask who is bleeding. We look around warily, all trying to hush the telling murmur of our hearts. Okay, so I thought I would read you this particular poem in front of scenic Kingston Penitentiary, and actually that's the title of this poem as well. So this one is called Kingston Pen. Driving past the prison, turrets and limestone set on the edge of water, my daughter nearly leaps from her car seat. Look, Mummy, a castle! There could easily be a beast inside, a hidden prince. We talk about prison in terms of timeouts, and I know she pictures small boys, unkempt hair, the remains of snot drying across their flushed cheeks. All sitting on stiff back chairs, their legs kicking out the seconds left on their time. She's right. I've worked in prisons before, seen the boys with metal shard eyes, the large hands, the sloped shoulders, each with the mouth of a child, raw and covetous. I put her to bed under glowing stars, a cloud of mosquito netting, and I think of these men, murderers a short jog from our home, caught in the closed-fist sleep of children, floodlights winking like stars. And now what I'll do is I'll read to you from my new manuscript, actually, which is all based on Facebook. So every poem is titled with somebody else's status update. And this one is by Julie Breck, who is also a fantastic poet. And her status update was, at SF Friends School, the 7th graders get an ethical question every week. This week's was, is it wrong to lie to a dog? Due Friday. And here's the poem. The dog knows when you lie, all your plans, every time you go for a walk alone. He can smell it on you, the wind in your jacket, the hot dog on your breath. Still, his love is like a loose leash. There is no moment when he is not tethered to you. His paws go slack over your feet as you lie in bed, listening. To your mind recite the reasons you're alone. He pretends for you that you are both happy, that the 10-minute walks around the same city block can fill both your hearts. And then the last poem that I'm going to read to you is actually what we're going to do our writing exercise on. So this poem is called a glossa, and I'll explain what the form is, but it's based on somebody else's poem. So this one is based on these four lines by James Wright's poem, and it's called Blessing, and these are the lines from James Wright. that is delicate as the skin over a girl's wrist. Suddenly I realized that if I stepped out of my body, I would break into blossom. So here's my glossa based on those 4 lines. All day she has been at me, trudging around the house, my arms filled with laundry as she nudges my legs like a colt trying to get under her mother. There is never an arm's length of peace. She's all elbows and knees, her fists open and closed, trying to grasp the wisps of attention I toss her. How many ways have I broken her? All I've dismissed that is as delicate as the skin over a girl's wrist. These days her face changes like the moon, a glowing distance, a coming and withdrawing. I fold clothes and she perches at the edge of the bed, throwing her own skin, tossing off the small vestiges of me like a primordial tail. When she was born, the colors shifted in her eyes, dust to earth, as if she were becoming more solid within my gaze. How carelessly I held her, like the earth shouldering the skies. Suddenly I realize all the thousands of ways I will lose her, and I am overcome as by a death, with her still sitting there, singing quietly to her stuffed monkey. The world is astonishing in this small room, the miracle of her child's voice, the bounty of clean clothes. All there is to give, to take. I am staggered by the hours that disappear like small coins. I am a spendthrift with holes in my pockets, and I know that I have swallowed too much happiness. It is an ache, that if I stepped out of my body, I would break into blossoms. And so why not? The garden blooms until frost has bitten off the last petals, stubbornly and without purpose. Here we are, that same obtuse profusion of color and excess. My daughter comes to me, and I would like to fold her in my arms, show her the awesome strength of my love, but she is skittish with my affection. Children are wild things, lightly tamed. All I can offer her is myself, about to soften into blossom. Okay, so we're here where I write, which is in my home at my kitchen table, and this is where I write not only my poetry, but I also write my kids' books. So I've got several different picture books. I have A Flock of Shoes. I have my newest one, The Stone Hatchlings. I also have Dogs Don't Eat Jam, even though they really do. And lastly I have my kids' nonfiction, which is called Warriors and Whalers. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to go over a little writing exercise. The last poem that I read you was called a glossa, and a glossa is a poem based on somebody else's poem. So what you would do is you would take somebody else's poem that you really like, doesn't matter which one, and you would find 4 lines out of it, preferably 4 lines in a stanza. Now these 4 lines are going to be the end of each one of your stanzas. So your poem is going to have 4 stanzas each, okay? And each stanza is going to end with a line from the poem that you've taken your glossa from. Now within each stanza, the 6th, 9th, and 10th, the 10th line being the last line that you've taken, are all going to end rhyme, okay? They're all going to rhyme with each other. So for example, when I took the lines from James Wright in that previous glossa, the lines that I took from him were, that is as delicate as the skin over a girl's wrist. Suddenly I realized that if I stepped out of my body, I would break into blossom. So for my first stanza, of course, the very last line has to be, that is as delicate as the skin over a girl's wrist. And that is going to have to rhyme with the 9th and the 6th line. So in this case here, the rhymes are fists, dismiss, and wrists. Going on, the next line of course would be suddenly I realize. So here's the very last line in the second stanza, suddenly I realize, which has to rhyme again with the 6th and 9th lines, which here are skies and eyes. So once you've got that whole poem done, what you should have is you should have a poem with 4 stanzas, 10 lines each, 6th, 9th, and 10th lines rhyming, and that last line is taken from the original poem on which you're based your glossa. A glossa is a form in which you take the original intent of a poem and you gloss over it. You add your own meaning, you add another layer to it. Now I'd also like to introduce you to a poet that I love, and her name is Sherry Benning. And while she doesn't write glosses, what she does do is she writes poems with incredible imagery. Sherry is from Saskatchewan, and she's written 2 books with multiple awards. Her first book is called Earth After Rain, which is the one I'm going to be reading from, and her second book is called Thin Moon Psalms, and it's published by Brick Books. This one here is published by Thistledown. So, I just wanted to read you a poem so that you would get an idea of why her imagery is so absolutely fantastic. And this poem is called Why I'm Afraid to Have Children. Because my bones are doors that enclose you, and your arrival will unhinge me. I will dislocate a tectonic shift. Because my belly will distend, and after I will be a hollow mollusk streamed with seaweed. Because your heart is a hummingbird in a nest of filament veins. Because I might drop you on my scabby linoleum floor, as when I dropped my grandma's crystal vase, everywhere prismatic shards. Because I am 22, I am 42, I am 35. Because I would rather give up my life than myself, and you will demand no less. Because a vampire who teaches high school during the days lives in the apartment below my boyfriend's. Late at night, little girls file into his lair like animals facing slaughter. When I pass them in the hall, they cover their faces, their hands the color of yellowing pearls. Because the pain of your descent hovers like a wasp, and my mother, who told me I'll forget, has been known to lie. Because the river is veiled by an iridescent skin that conceals a current. Because pregnant women's skin, which is said to glow, conceals what might drown them. Because your fingertips are wild strawberries, crushable and then sweet bud blood. Because I heard that pregnant women in Nazi war camps had their legs tied together, and I don't want to know how this could kill me. Because while sunbathing on a beach last summer, I saw a sail, small as your first tooth. You're like that sail floating on an inland sea. The closer we get, the bigger you become. So that was Sherry Benning. Go out and read her right now.